constructing a shadow box is to get your materials ready. So the first thing that you're going to need is a shadow box. In this case, we are using a 9x9, but you can use whatever size that you want. The files can be resized to whatever square shape that you want. It just needs to be square. It's good to always have a ruler. We'll get to this in a minute, but if you have a different size shadow box, then you can use this to measure the inside of the shadow box to make sure your files are the right size. Next, we need the paper colors, and included in your download are some color suggestions. But the beautiful thing about these shadow boxes and the files and the paper is you can pick whatever colors you want. So if you like the sample and you want to just do something simple, you can take this to the store with you and pick out some paper. Now, even when I went to the store, I ended up with a little bit different colors than the ones that I had picked out. So you'll see that instead of brown, I ended up picking this kind of purple color. The one thing that you need to keep in mind is that at the top, on your paper, make sure that it's 65-pound paper. Okay, paper comes in different weights, and you can see this, you know, 65-pound is, it's like good cardstock weight. Okay, so we're going to be using that for this project. So I came up with a variety of different colors for the different layers here, but again, you can be creative and try different things. The best thing about it is that, let's say that I use this purple instead of the brown, and I decide that I really don't like it, right? Or maybe this color, this lilac that I picked is, you know, a little bit too purple maybe. You don't have to redo the whole project. You can just reprint that one layer in a different color. So for instance, in the background, you might even want to pick a pattern, you know, maybe something with snowflakes to go with a winter theme, or you could do some florals to go with a spring theme, or something that matches the room that you're going to put this in. So there's no pressure. And again, if one of the colors that you picked you don't really love, you can just reprint that particular layer and swap it out. Okay, so I also picked up, so I bought individual pieces for some of the layers, but then for the blues, I found I really like this packet, and I think I'm going to use maybe this color for the face and body, and maybe one of these colors for like the hood shadow. Okay, so I went ahead and bought like a big pack because I like these colors and I'll be using them in other projects. In addition, I do have some white sparkle, but just for like this white layer, I decided to pick up a pack of white because you can actually do the whole thing, all the layers in white, put some lights behind it, and it would still look really neat. And some black, because those are just basic colors. I could have bought individuals, but that's what I ended up buying. Now, when you put these together, you can just basically glue them all together, right? But if you want them to have a little bit of separation and get that depth, then you'll need some kind of foamy material. You can have any kind of foam, you know, sheets, and cut them up and glue them in between. They have these like glue dots that you can use to separate the layers. I found this at the dollar store. This is foam mounting tape, and I'm going to use that to separate my layers. If you want to light up your design, then you can also purchase some lights. These were some LED lights that I found at the dollar store. So I'm going to try both of them, see if one works better than the other. You can get these just about anywhere these days. So look for some sales on LED lights if you want. These are battery operated. Okay, so here I have my paper, and I've laid out the layers the way that I want them in order. Okay, so all I'm going to do then is gather these up and just turn them upside down. Put my sheet over here, and let's go ahead and get the Cricut opened up and turn turn it on. It's going to do its little setup. And I got some brand new sheets. If you're ever having trouble with your paper sticking too much, not enough, I highly recommend that you get some new mats once in a while. So these are, you can tell, not Cricut brand mats. I got these on Amazon. They are the light grit mats, which are the same color. They're blue. And this came with 3, so I don't need all 3. Just take one of those. And it does have a protector sheet on it. So go ahead and take the protector sheet off. And then let's load up our first piece of paper, and this one does have a little bit of a sheen to it. You want to make sure that the right side, you can use either side of the paper, but whatever side you want, that's the side that should be up. So make sure you line it up with the grid. And if you have a brayer, if you want to, smush it down, you can. Depends on the paper. Usually this isn't really necessary. Okay. Okay, so next we are going to open the Cricut design space. And Cricut updates quite often. This is version 7.22.149. So depending on what version you're on, it might look a little bit different, but it should act basically the same. So from here, you want to go to the top right corner to New Project. And this is your blank grid layout. We need to get our images in there. So let's go to the Upload button. And we want to go to Upload Image. And you can drag and drop the SVG file here, or you can click Browse on your computer. Mine happens to be on my desktop, so I'm just going to drag this to the side and bring my file right into the window. This automatically understands that it's a cut image, which is correct, and so we don't have to do anything here except for click Upload. You could change the name if you want to be able to find it later differently. Otherwise, just click Upload. You will see a list of your most recent documents. So click the one we just uploaded and then click Add to Canvas. And you will see that the size on this is 8.3 by 8.3. This is going to give a little bit of a margin in your shadow box. The inside of the shadow box is 8.5 times 8.5. So at this point, if you need to make your shape any other size, or if you want those margins to be a little bit tighter in your shadow box, all you need to do is click the Lock Proportions button until it looks like that, until it's locked. And then you can either use the up arrow keys, like if you wanted to make it 8.5, I'm gonna put mine back at the 8.3. Or let's say you had a different size shadow box, just make sure you measure the inside of your shadow box to get the dimension you want, and just type it here. So let's say if you had a little tiny shadow box that was like 4.4 inches or something, you could hit 4 and it'll make it 4 inches. Okay, so again, I'm going to leave mine on 8.3. That gives me just a little bit of wiggle room inside in case I need to move the layers around just a little bit. On the right side of your screen, you will see all of the layers, and they all have the same name, unfortunately, but they are in order here. So this should match your printout. If you printed it out to show you the different colors, these have some of the suggested colors. However, when we go to make it, Cricut automatically sorts the layers by matte color based on a interesting rainbow. Okay, so when you go to make it, it's going to reorder these layers, but on each layer there is a number. So if I hide the the top layer, you will see that on each of the layers there is a number, and they are 1 to 9. The top layer is 10, but obviously we don't want the number showing, so I don't have a number on the top layer. Just you have to know that that's your top layer. The one without a number is your top layer. And so they start at 1 and work up to layer 10. So let's go ahead and click the Make It button at the top right corner. And if you have a Maker 3, it's going to ask you if you have a mat or not. I do have a mat. You want to make sure it's the blue mat, and tell it what size. For this project, you just need the 12 by 12 mat. Okay, so now you can see that it rearranged all of the layers, not based on the order they're in, but by the mat color, which is based on the color of the file, which is set up in Illustrator. So you can do this one of two ways. You can take a peek at the layer number and have your materials laid out in order and pick layer 9 and load that in, or you can go in whatever order you want. So if you want to go in the order that they are, you can just click on these different layers. You can see the numbers. The top one doesn't have a number, so we can just go through. There's layer 2, 4, here's layer 1. So if we want to go in our own order, which I'm going to do in this case, just like because I think it's a little bit easier, you can choose which ones that you want to do first. So I'm going to pick layer 1 and hit continue. Okay, so we are going to come up to mine is a Cricut Maker 3, and I'm going to tell it that it is connected via USB. It'll say it's not recommended, but it still works. I always wire my stuff together if possible. So on here we need to choose the right material, and I have mine bookmarked, but I'll show you how to find this. So I'm going to go to Browse All Materials, and you can search, or you can just go down to the cardstock. So the one that says cardstock for intricate cuts, I put the little star here so it shows up in my menu, and that's the one that I'm going to use. You can also choose light cardstock. There's medium cardstock if you ended up with a little bit heavier cardstock, but I'm going to use the cardstock for intricate cuts. I think that it's good to, you may end up having to change these a little bit, so just be patient, and once you get the one that you like, if you star it, then it'll show up in the menu here. Okay, so the pressure, you have 3 options. You've got the default, and you can do more or less. Again, I think that if you choose the right setting, you should just use default, but if you find that the cuts need one more pass, that's going to be the more setting, or if it's shredding your paper, it's like too much, then you can do less. You can actually go into the settings on the materials and fine-tune them if you need to, and I've had to do that with other materials, but not the cardstock, so I'm just going to leave that on default. And then it says load your tools and material. So you can see that it's ready to load the materials because this is blinking. So all you do is just line it up and click the button, and that's going to load the cardstock into the Cricut machine. Make sure you have enough room behind it. Mine hit the wall, so I'm just going to bring this out just a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to hit looks like a play button. This is the start button. Okay, once it's finished, this will blink again, and you just hit it to unload it. Now, for these paper cut, it should just come right off. So I usually just take the extra off, and I usually, if it's a big one like this, I usually save the extra pieces. So I'm just going to put the extra pieces off to the side, and then I'm going to gently, you don't want it to curl up, so you can sort of gently it's a new mat, very sticky. Okay, so there's my first layer. It did kind of roll up a little bit. Now you can see like the little one is left on here. That's from the cutout. That lets us know which layer it is right here. So you'll need to take that off, and it's up to you on what you use for that. If you've got a little tool to do that, I'm just going to use the regular little Cricut tool, and I'm just going to scrape that off into my hand and then throw it away. Okay, so the first layer is done. Set that there, and let's go ahead and load up our second layer. Again, this one's got a shiny side to it, so I want to make sure that our shiny side is up. And I'm not going to use the brayer this time because I feel like it was really sticky. And on this one, we're going to find layer 2. So it should be this pink one. If you click on it, it'll make it big, and you can see that that is layer 2 in the little corner there. So this is the one we want to do next. We're going to choose the cardstock and going to repeat the same thing. We're going to load it in. And did you see it? Mine loaded in crooked, and this happens. So if you start to load it, sometimes it'll fix itself when it does this. Other times it doesn't. That time it did. But if that ever happens where you accidentally load it crooked, you can just unload it. Okay, and then get it lined up again, hit the button again. It'll reload it. It'll pull it through and back and try to get it a little bit straighter. Okay, so don't be afraid of that. It happens sometimes. Whether you're left-handed or right-handed, sometimes you tend to push it at an angle. It's no big deal. Just unload it and try again. Okay, this one's ready. I'm going to hit the print button, start button, and it's going to print layer 2. From here, what we're going to be keeping is always the outside and whatever's attached to the outside. So this is going to be the pink layer, so we don't need these pieces, but we do need the square and everything attached to it. So again, very gently try to bend the mat. Okay, I got a little bit of a curl to it, but now we have, ooh, sticking back to the mat, layer 2. Okay, so this is what we have so far. We have layer 1 and layer 2, and you can see they have the numbers. We're just going to set off to the side. Again, we don't need this on here, so if you have like a little scraper tool, you can just scrape off the numbers and these extra pieces that were cut out. This one's again pretty simple, and just throw those away. You're going to repeat the same process where you go to Cricut Design Space, choose the next layer, put that color paper on the mat, start the Cricut machine, and then take off that layer, remove the excess, and load the next color up. Again, there are 10 layers total for this particular project, so just keep going on. You can see if there's a couple of small areas where the holes don't get punched out all the way, you can use the little tool that came with your Cricut machine to punch those out. For most of the layers, I did use the 12 by 12 sheets, but for the black and white layers, those are 8.5 by 11. So because our total design is just shy of 8.5, it's 8.3 instead of 8.5, it does work. Sometimes you have to try it a couple of times to get where those cuts are exactly. But it will work for this design for the 9 by 9 to use 8.5 by 11 cardstock if you want. So you'll notice that layer 7, which is the fur layer, that one is a little bit tough on the cleanup. There's a lot of those little dots that are stuck to the mat. The next layer is super easy, which is just the circle cutout, and then the snowflake layer is also a little challenging. It takes a while for the Cricut machine to cut out all of those intricate patterns. Just be careful that when you pull it off that you're careful and that you don't rotate it, because the snowflakes aren't symmetrical, so they're meant to fill in some of the spaces on the design. And then the last layer is the dark layer, which only has a few different cutouts, and that one is also really fast. So this last part is the assembly. So take your shadow box, take the back off, and start with your first layer. And again, you can use glue, you can use pieces of foam to make it more 3D. I use these little adhesive foam strips. I just cut them down and I put them in the corners, and then ended up putting them on the horns and at the top a little bit, just to keep it in line. And so you just repeat this with each layer. This part's a lot of fun to really watch it come together. And again, just go in order, make sure that the numbers are going in order. And then of course that last layer doesn't have a number on it, so that the number doesn't show, and then it's all done. The last thing you can do if you want is you can include some of those LED lights. Just take the back off. I used the rope lights and added a little tissue paper for padding, and there you have it.